Hello and welcome to my channel. In this video I'm going to be showing you how to make the Alpine stitch dog snood. This is a very simple pattern. All you will need to know is the basic crochet stitches of single, double and treble crochet in US terms for the actual Alpine stitch, and if you chose to add ribbing to it as well, you will just need to know how to do the half double crochet. If you chose to leave that out, your snood would look something like this. I do have instructions for both versions in this video, so stick around. And if you are unsure about any of the basic stitches, I do have a playlist on my channel as well that you can check out. I will link it in the description box below. Let's get started. For this snood, I will be using the Ferris wheel yarn in the colorway Cotton Candy. It is a beautiful 4-way acrylic yarn. You can use any fiber or yarn weight that you prefer. The thicker you go, the quicker the snood will work up. I do have a large dog, which I'm making this for, so I'm just using a 4-weight yarn. You can go chunky if you prefer as well, or smaller. It doesn't really matter too much. Just know that the smaller you go, the more stitches you will have to do to sort of make up the size of it. I'm pairing it with my 5mm Clover Amore hook, which is the recommended hook size for this particular yarn. Just adjust the hook size to whatever yarn you are using. I also do recommend a row counter if you are doing the ribbing. If you aren't doing it, it doesn't matter too much, but essentially we will need to have an even number of stitches, the even number of rows, sorry, to begin the Alpine stitch. So if you're doing this for a large dog, for example, you might need, 50, 60, 70 rows of the ribbing, so you definitely need to have a row counter to make that easier on yourself, and also just make sure you're ending on an even number. If you're not going to be doing the ribbing, just chain the length that fits around your dog's neck, ensuring it ends on an even number, and then chain either 2 or 3, whatever your preference is, for a double crochet turning chain, and double crochet back onto the chain. You should have an even number of double crochets. You could also do a double crochet foundation row that fits around your dog's neck, as long as it ends in an even number, because that's what we need for this particular pattern. But let's get started on the ribbing. Skip this part if you choose to. I'm just going to do a small section of ribbing, so I'm just going to do maybe 3, and then I'm just going to chain 1 because I'm going to be doing half double crochets for this one, and I'm going to yarn over, work it into my third chain on my hook, and work a half double crochet like that, and do 2 more. So I'm going to have 3 half double crochets by the end of this row, and that is my first row of my ribbing. And now I'm just going to chain 1 again. I'm just going to move this out of the way so my camera doesn't go out of focus. So that's your first row. I've chained 1. I'm going to turn my work and work half double crochets again, but only into the back loop. That is what is going to create the ribbing. So yarn over, working into the back loop of the previous row's half double crochet, yarn over, and pull through all 3 loops to finish my half double crochet, and working 2 more. So that is round 2 of my ribbing. So it's a very small ribbing section, but just will add a little bit of extra character, I guess, to the snood. And I'm about to start row 3, so again, turn your work and work in the back loops only. One, 2, and 3. So I've just finished my third row of my ribbing. So I'm just going to keep a note of that on my row counter so I don't lose track, and I'm going to continue this until the length of it is comfortably fitting around my dog's neck, making sure it also ends in an even number of rows. So I will meet you once I have all of my ribbing rows completed. So you should now have an even number of ribbing rows. I have got 54. You won't need your row counter anymore, so pop that away. Now chain 1, and this is just going to help us slip stitch a little bit easier. Now depending on how long this will be a little bit fiddly, but you just want to make sure that your section isn't twisted, and then join the two ends together like this, so there's no twists in my work. Now this is the beginning chains that I did to start this whole row, and this is the last section of half double crochets that I've just done. And you are going to go through both the chain and then both loops of the half double crochet that you completed, and slip stitch them together. So because I have 3 half double crochets in each row, I will have to slip stitch 3 times just to form the snood base. And last one, go through the chain and both loops like that, and slip stitch. So you should now end up with something like this. And now we are going to set up the double crochet foundation row. So if you have skipped the ribbing section, you would have already done this. You don't have to do this section. You essentially need to chain 2 if you have done the ribbing, and this doesn't count as a double crochet. And you're going to double crochet into each row that you've done. So because I've done 54, I will end up with 54 double crochets, not including this chain. So the easiest way for you to, I guess, gauge how many double crochets you need to do is the ribbing that you've created essentially will be 2 stitches between each section, if that makes sense. So I've got like a wall here and a wall here, so I've got to do 2 double crochets in between. Same thing with these ones, 2 double crochets. This one is just 1 double crochet because the other one is here. So I am just going to go 1 in there. I also like to just crochet over my yarn tail. It makes it easier and you don't have to weave in ends at the end. So that's 1. And now I move on to this section and have to do 2 in there. 2. 3. 4. 5. 'The end's getting a bit short, so I might just weave that in later. 6. 7. 8. 9. 10. And essentially keep doing that until you have the same number of double crochets as you did ribbing rows. Once you've done your last one, you are going to slip stitch into the chains that you did at the start of the row like this, just to connect it. Now going forward, we won't need to do any more chains to begin each row. You are essentially just going to be working in rounds and it will sort of just work up, so don't worry too much about it. But I do recommend grabbing yourself a stitch marker. This will help you keep track of the beginnings and the ends of your round. So the next setup row is to do a single crochet in each double crochet that you've just created. So I'm going to do a single crochet in here and just put my stitch marker in it so I know that that is my first stitch. And if you have skipped the ribbing section of this snood and have gone straight into just a double crochet setup row, this is where you will need to join us now. So you will need to do a single crochet into each double crochet that you've done. I have done 54, so I will end up with 54 single crochets at the end of it. So just simply single crochet, and I will see you at the end. Once you're done with your single crochet row, I recommend just popping this back on your dog to make sure it fits how you want it to fit. Make sure that there's enough wiggle room in there and it isn't too snug. The single crochet is the smallest stitch in crochet, so it's not as stretchy as the rest of the stitches. So you just want to make sure it fits correctly at this point before you proceed. If it's a bit snug, don't worry, you can just pull back the single crochet layer and do a few staggered increases. It doesn't matter how many you do as long as you end on an even number, and that should fix the issue. Now let's move on to the fun bit, which is the Alpine stitch. So we are done with our set up rows basically, and we will be moving on to the Alpine row repeats, which involves a row of front post treble crochets and double crochets broken up by a row of single crochets. So we're going to do front post treble and double in this one, followed by a single crochet row like we just did, another front post treble and double crochet row, and then a single crochet row, and we basically repeat that until it's the length that we want, leaving a little bit of extra room for the ribbing that we can then complete on the other end of the snood. So to do our front post treble, we are going to work it into the double crochet that we worked 2 rounds ago. So we're going to go through, for the first one, the chain 2 and the double crochet. So this one's just a little bit thicker, but that's completely fine. And we're going to yarn over twice like that and go through both of these. So insert your hook from right to left like that until you're on the other side and your double crochet from the previous round is sitting on your hook like that. Now you want to yarn over and pull through like this, yarn over, pull through just those 2, yarn over, pull through 2 more, yarn over and pull through the final 2. And that is your front post treble and your first stitch of the round. And now we're going to work a double crochet. So because this was our first stitch, we are going to skip the first single crochet from this round, the previous round. So that's our first single crochet that we did. Skip that, and you're now working your second stitch, which is a double crochet. So you work it into both loops of this single crochet. So yarn over, put it through both loops. Yarn over, pull through, and complete your double crochet. That's our second stitch. I'm now just going to move my stitch marker to our front post treble that we just completed, just to mark that as our first stitch so we know where we stopped and started. And now we continue alternating between front post trebles and double crochets. So you want to skip this double crochet that you just did because you worked a double crochet just above it. You're going to work your next front post treble into the third one here. So yarn over twice, pop your hook through the back of that stitch and out the other side like that. This is your double crochet sitting on your hook. Yarn over, pull that through. Now you've got 4 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over, pull through 2, yarn over and pull through the final 2. That's your third stitch. And now another double crochet, so yarn over again. We're going to skip the next single crochet from the previous row because we've just worked a treble in front of it, and we're going to work a double into the next one, which is here. So pop that through just like that, yarn over, pull through, yarn over and complete your double crochet. Let's do our next treble. So yarn over twice, go through the next loop, the next double crochet, and complete your treble. And now another double, so we're going to skip that stitch there that we just worked a treble in front of, and we're going to work a double into the next one. And continue repeating that until you have reached the end of this row. So because we started the round with a front post treble crochet, our last stitch of the round should be a double crochet. So we're just working our last one in here. And now we're just going to work a round of single crochets. So just remove your stitch marker, work your single into that first front post treble stitch that you did, pop it back in so we know where we started, and just continue single crocheting for the rest of the row. Once you have finished your single crochet round, we are going to work another round of front post trebles and doubles. So 2 rounds ago we started with a front post treble, so in this round we are going to start with just a double. So you're just going to work it on top of that treble crochet in your first stitch there. Like that. Pop your stitch marker back in just so we can keep track of the starting point. And now in that double crochet that you did from 2 rounds ago, we are going to work our front post treble. So yarn over twice, go through that stitch, yarn over, pull it through to the other side, and complete your treble. And now we skip that stitch at the back and work another double crochet into that one. And we basically continue alternating between front post trebles and double crochets. So our next one goes into this double crochet here. Skip a stitch, work your double crochet into the next one. I'll see you at the end of the round. Since your first stitch of this round was a double crochet, your last one will be a front post treble just into that last double crochet there. Remove your stitch marker, and then we are just going to do another row of single crochets. So just single crochets throughout the entire row. Just remember to check your stitch count periodically, just to make sure you haven't added or subtracted a few stitches. You want to ensure that your snood remains consistent. But yes, just continue with single crochets throughout this row, and I will see you at the end. So now that you're done with your single crochet row, we are going to repeat the last 4 rows that we did. So this next row is basically the first row that we did after the setup round, which is beginning with a front post treble in that first double there, and then alternating that with double crochets. So just a double crochet in the next stitch, skipping that first one. And I'm just going to move my stitch marker as well. And basically continue that row until the end, then alternate with a single crochet, and then start my next row with a double crochet, and then go treble, double, treble, another single crochet, and continue repeating that until I have the length of my dog's neck. If you did start with some ribbing, just leave a little bit of space at the end for the ribbing on the other side as well, which I will meet up with you shortly to do. But otherwise, just continue on with this pattern until the very end, and you should have your snood. Just make sure you do end on a single crochet row though, and I will see you when you get there. Once you have completed your last row of single crochets and are happy with the length of your snood, we can now move on to the ribbing on the other end. If you skip that initially, simply just fasten off your work and weave in your yarn tail, you are done. But to work the ribbing on the other side, we'll just remove our stitch marker, we won't need that anymore, and slip stitch into that first stitch. Now we are going to chain the same number of chains that we did when we started our work. So I did 4, one of which was my turning chains, and then I worked half double crochets into 3 of the remaining chains. So each of my ribs is 3 half double crochets. So I'm just going to replicate that on this side. So I'm going to chain 3 plus 1 turning chain and work a half double crochet into 3 of the chains. So skipping the first one and working half double crochets into the other 3. So that's 1, that's 2, and my last one, and that's 3. And now we're going to slip stitch into the next 2 stitches just to anchor that down. So this was the one that we slip stitched into and started our ribbing on. So I'm going to slip stitch into this one and this one. One slip stitch and 2 slip stitches. Now you're just simply going to turn your work. And in the back loops of the half double crochets that you just did, we are going to work 3 more half double crochets. So 1 in each stitch. So yarn over, go into just the back loop, 1 half double crochet, and then the next one, and then the last one. We're going to chain 1, turn our work, and in the back loop of those 3 half double crochets we're going to do more double crochet, half double crochets. So 1 in each one in just the back loop. That's 1, 2, and number 3. Now we're going to slip stitch into the next 2, so that's this one and this one. Turn our work again and repeat. So a half double crochet in the back loops of the half double crochets that we just did. 1, 2, and 3, chain 1, turn your work, and in the back loop some more half double crochets. 1, 2, and number 3. Slip stitch in the next 2, and we're basically just going to repeat this until we get to the other end, when we will then connect the 2 ends together. So continue doing this. So flip, half double crochets, chain 1, half double crochets back on the back loops only, slip stitch the next 2, then turn, half double crochets in the back loop, chain 1, repeat basically until you get to this end, and I'll see you when you get there. Once you've done your last bit of ribbing, just slip stitch towards the first bit that you did, and then slip stitch the 2 ends together. Doesn't matter if you do it on the right side or the wrong side, we just need to connect it. So going through both loops like that. Slip stitch, go through the next stitch, slip stitch, and on last one go through both and slip stitch. And now you can just fasten off and weave in your yarn tail, and you are done. So that is your snood with the ribbing, and if you chose to do it without it, it would look something like this. I hope you enjoyed that video. Please leave me a thumbs up if you did. Let me know in the comments what your thoughts are, and if you have any other ideas for dog snood patterns, and I can definitely make it for you. See you in my next one.